iHeart, get ready. Fantasy football is here. Welcome to the Scout Fantasy Show. ScoutFantasy.com is home to the Fantasy Football World Championships and the best players in the world. Real money winners giving their secrets to help you win. Now exclusively on iHeart. This is the Scout Fantasy Show with your host, the one, the only, Dr. Roto.
Dr. Roto, get out the insurance cards, get out the copay. The office is open, my friends. Got a lot to cover today. We're going to talk about some mining the box scores for Fantasy Gold. Also take a look at some news and notes, things you need to know about, review last night's game. So first of all, I'm going to talk about last night's game for a second there. And I admit I was wrong. Offensive explosion. Who knew? 45-21. At halftime, I looked very right, 17-7. And then all of a sudden in the second half, boom, Cam Newton. Look, I don't trust him. I wouldn't play him, but he played great last night. I have to give credit where credit's due. 254 yards, 4 touchdowns, 95 yards rushing. He was great. Cameron Artis-Payne starting to look like a guy that you could use in a deeper league. Maybe Jonathan Stewart gets injured. I don't know. Cameron Artis-Payne looks like a tough guy to take down. Very interesting to me. Devin Funchess, terrific, 5 for 92, 2 touchdowns. Curtis Samuel is going to be out for a while. I think Russell Shepard obviously has to step up, but, there's got to be more out there. I didn't really like how Russell Shepard looked. I was not very impressed by them. Kalen Clay is there. Really not thrilled with him. This Brenton Burson kid, I mean, come on. This guy's been cut 27 million times out there by Carolina. I guess they need Shepard to step up. Greg Olsen will be back after the bye week. Maybe you'll see a 2 tight end offense there with Olsen and Dixon. I think he gets more involved. Shepard's just hard to rely on. Just not a great ball catcher. I mean, he had 7 targets. He caught 3 passes, but he had some easy drops yesterday. So let's watch that one very closely. From Miami, Kenyon Drake, 7 carries, 82 yards, a touchdown. Damian Williams played a little bit, but Drake is by far the better player. I know that Adam Gase likes Williams more, but Drake is a high upside talent, and that's what wins. Devontae Parker, 6 for 66. Jarvis Landry, 5 for 42 and a touchdown. Kenny Stills, 5 for 67 in just which was excessive garbage time. Okay? So we will go mining the box scores for Fantasy Gold in just a few minutes. We'll take a look at what's out there. In terms of the news, Rob Kelly expected to miss multiple games. So Samaje Perine, he's our guy, right? He's our guy. And Chris Thompson. So if you have Chris Thompson, he's absolutely a must start every week. And I think Perine is going to move into that way. We called him as our breakout player of the year. It actually may still happen. There's always guys who break out late in the season. Could it be Perine? It absolutely could. Other things. I told you Curtis Samuel could be out for a while. I like this kid, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. Some guys in concussion protocol. We know Phillip Rivers is in concussion protocol. That's a guy to watch. Okay, not 100% there. So let's watch him. We need him to play. Kellen Clemens could be very, very ugly this week. In other news, Todd Bowles says that he'll stick with Josh McCown as his starter. That makes sense. And Dirk Cutter thinks that Jameis Winston will come back at some point this season. I guess so, but I'm not sure what that really means. We'll see. Was it 2 weeks? Is it 4 weeks? We don't know. We know Allen Hurns won't be there in week 11. Expect D.D. Westbrook to be activated. You'll have D.D. Westbrook, you'll have Keelan Cole, and you will have Marquise Lee. Those will be your receivers. I'm actually excited to see those guys. A couple of those guys, very, very fast players. Sean Lee could be without missing time for the next 3 weeks. If he's out, man, the Eagles are just going to run all over them without Sean Lee. I don't really like Sean Lee. I don't like the Cowboys much, but when you watch a Cowboys game, Sean Lee's always in on the tackle. He's always there making a play. And if he's going to miss some of these games, boy, I just am thinking that Melvin Gordon, Jay Ajayi, Perine, all these guys who he's going to see are going to run very, very well against the Cowboys. Okay, Mining the box scores for Fantasy Gold. I'm just going to look at it game by game, tell you what I see, and we'll do it that way. The Giants in San Francisco. Orleans Darkwa had 14 carries out of the team's 23 carries. Sterling Shepard and Evan Engram had 22 targets out of 37 possible targets. That's a ton. That's a ton. So, that's where Eli Manning is going with the football, to those two guys. For San Francisco, they had 33 rushing attempts. 17 were Carlos Hyde, not Matt Breida. But in terms of receiving, everybody just got involved in the action. Nobody was extra special in that game, so there's really not much to look at here. For New Orleans, Drew Brees attempted only 25 passes and he completed 18. Do you know that 9 of his 18 completions went to Michael Thomas? That's a 50% clip. No other wide receiver had more than one reception. 1. Willie Snead, 0. Ginn, 1. Coleman, 1. They didn't need to throw the ball because they were running so well. Is that a testament to their offensive line? Is that a testament to their running game? Or is that a testament to the fact that the Bills stink? I don't know, one of those two. One of those three. We'll just have to see. For the Bills, Kelvin Benjamin had the most targets in his first game, but it's hard to really say what happened here because it was such an obliteration. It's hard to get a read on that. So sometimes we don't catch enough from blowouts. I need the games to be closer to see how things shake out. Green Bay and Chicago, there were 17 carries by the Bears. Jordan Howard had 15 of them. Mitch Trubisky threw the ball 35 times, which is way more than he ever does. But Dontrell Inman had 8 targets, Bellamy had 7, and Kendall Wright had 8. So that's where those passes went. Jordan Howard had 0, Tariq Cohen had 2, Benny Cunningham had 4. More about that later. I hate Benny Cunningham. How about more about that now? I hate that bum. Green Bay, Jamal Williams had 20 carries, but Aaron Jones had 3 and Montgomery had 6. So when they left, Jamal Williams had almost all the carries. So let's watch him very closely this week. In terms of targets, Adams had 8, Jordy Nelson had 4. That bothers me. If I own Jordy Nelson, that absolutely bothers me, right? I need Jordy to get more than Devontae Adams, not vice versa. Cleveland, Duke Johnson had 10 carries, Crowell had 16 carries. Hugh Jackson continuing to want to run the football. In terms of targets, man, all these guys stink to me, except I do like Duke Johnson. Njoku had 6, and now Corey Coleman's back, so it'll be interesting. I think all these guys, Britt, Coates, Higgins, Lewis, they're all not very good players. Coleman is by far the best player in the bunch. For Detroit, Amir Abdullah had 11 of their 19 carries. Golden Tate had 6 receptions, and he had 7 targets. But listen to this one. 3-3-2-3-1-2-3. That was Golladay, Ebron, Jones Jr., Riddick, Washington, Abdullah, T.J. Jones. He spread the ball around. So Tate was the only guy who got real targets. Everybody else, there was the spread, right? Spreading around, which is always a good thing because I always think when the spread goes around there, the teams are doing well. They're operating well. Cincinnati had 14 carries, 14 rushing attempts. Joe Mixon had 9 of them. 14 is not going to win you any football games. It's just not. A.J. Green had 7 targets. Brandon LaFell had 10. Okay, Tyler Kroft had 6. Giovanni Bernard had 5. Joe Mixon had 3. 1 catch, 3 receptions. It's just not very good. But A.J. Green needs more targets. He does. For Tennessee, I look at their box score much like I look at Detroit. 9 targets for Walker, 7 for Matthews, 10 for Davis, 3 for Tywan Taylor, 4 for DeMarco Murray, 5 for Jonnu Smith, 3 for Decker, 3 for Henry. So these guys are all getting involved. Getting involved is really great in real life. It's not really great for your fantasy team. That's the problem. It's really good in real life. But for your fantasy team, it's not helping you one bit. It's just not. All right, Pittsburgh and Indianapolis. Do you know how I know Indianapolis lost this game? T.Y. Hilton went 2 for 23 on 4 targets. It's just not enough. This guy needs 8, 9, 10 targets. Find him the football. For Pittsburgh, Juju Smith-Schuster had the same amount of targets as Antonio Brown, 7. Lev Bell had 6. That's how the Steelers roll. There was a little Martavis Bryant, that's true, but I think that's because they were behind in this game. I don't think you see much Martavis Bryant when they're winning. I think there's 3 guys, Juju, AB, and Bell. That's it. Okay? Lev Bell had 26 carries. Connor had 1, but he looked gimpy on that one. So watch that one closely. I'm not sure what he's going to be able to do moving forward. Jets and Buccaneers, Doug Martin, this guy is awful, had 20 carries. His longest run was 8 yards. I mean, you're not winning anything with an 8-yard carry. Just not winning anything. Deshaun Jackson had 10 targets. Chris Godwin had 10 targets. Like I said yesterday, more Godwin, please. More Godwin, please. For the Jets, Safarian Jenkins had 9 targets. Elijah McGuire had 7. Bilal Powell, 2. That's worrisome to me. Bilal Powell, 10 carries. McGuire, 8. So I'm just saying, if Matt Forte's gone, if he's gone for any extended period of time with that knee, is it really Bilal Powell or is it Elijah McGuire? That remains to be seen. I think it's 50-50 for sure, and maybe even a little more to McGuire than you think. For Washington, Jamison Crowder had 11 targets. Vernon Davis had 11. Doxson had 7. Thompson had 7. There were a lot of targets to go around, but they were behind this entire game. At halftime, it was 28-17, so they were throwing. So more targets than we would expect. For Minnesota, Adam Thielen had 12 targets. Kyle Rudolph had 7. You'll only see 5 for Stephon Diggs, but Josh Norman was covering him. I think Stephon Diggs has way more targets this week. Running, Latavius Murray had 10 carries. Latavius Murray had 17 carries. Jerick McKinnon 10. So there you have it. It's going to be a little bit more in favor of Murray than McKinnon. P. Ryan had 9 carries, by the way. Thompson had 9 as well. I think you'll see a split of carries there moving forward. Okay, Chargers and Jaguars here. I'm worried. Keller had 10 carries, and he had 5 receptions. Melvin Gordon had 16 carries, but Melvin Gordon did have 8 targets. So they were throwing the ball to their running backs there, not so much their wide receivers. We know this because the wide receivers it was a very tough matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars just shut them down. So this week, who do I like? Duke Johnson going up against Jacksonville. Get the Dookie in your lineup there. Little Duke never hurt anybody. For Jacksonville, okay, Leonard Fournette had 17 carries out of 27. 27 attempts. They could have gone more to him. But Marquise Lee, 11 targets. Keelan Cole, 8 targets. Hearns, 9 targets. But they seem to be behind for much of this game as well. So I wouldn't really trust this as a true representation of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just not trusting that. Rams and Texans. Robert Woods had 10 targets. Gurley, 7. Kupp, 7. Watkins, 3. That's about right. Gurley had 11 carries. Dunbar had 4. Dunbar had 5. Very excited to see that, though, because it was good to see Lance Dunbar getting some carries. God forbid something happens to Todd Gurley. Lance Dunbar is just fine. Lance Dunbar is decent enough. Okay, so watch that closely. For the Texans, Lamar Miller had 11 carries. Foreman had 7. Alfred Blue had 4. In terms of targets, Hopkins had 14. Bruce Ellington had 8. Will Fuller's injured. He may miss some time. If he does, Bruce Ellington is a guy to go to. He's a different receiver than Will Fuller. He has speed, but he also has more quickness, where Fuller has more straight line speed. Ellington's got decent hands. I think he's a better match for Tom Savage than is Will Fuller, who's just more of a deep guy, try to get lucky there. Dallas and Atlanta. Dallas, Alfred Morris, 11 carries. Prescott had 6. Rod Smith had 3. McFadden 1. If you're worried what happens, Alfred Morris getting most of the carries there. Got about more than half carries. Jason Witten had 7 targets. Bryant had 8. Beasley had 3. Rod Smith had a lot of targets. That's 6. Why? Because Alfred Morris can't catch. Rod Smith can. Click. So let's put Rod Smith on the fantasy radar. Okay, let's do that right now. For Atlanta, you know that Freeman is out for a while. Tevin Coleman, number 1 guy there. But look for Teron Ward. He's interesting to me. He had 9 carries. Watch this guy. He will play more than you think he will. He's their version of Elijah McGuire. He doesn't play much, but he could just be a sneaky guy. If you were so desperate for a running back, take a look at him. In terms of receiving targets, Julio had 8. Hooper had 6. Sanu had 5. And then finally, the Patriots and the Broncos here. CJ Anderson had 10 carries, Charles 8, Booker 8. Okay, that's good to see. So, Anderson's still getting most of the carries, but Charles and Booker are getting involved. For the receiving, it's always two guys, Sanders and Thomas. Boom, 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 Sanders and Thomas. Latimer had 5 targets, but that's because they were getting killed, and at the end of the game, Thomas and Sanders were out. For New England, 29 rushing attempts. Lewis had 14, Burkhead had 10. That's 24 out of 29 belong to those two guys. That's good to see. That's good to see. Gronkowski had 7 targets. Brandon Cooks had 11, and then Bennett had 3, Amendola had 4, Burkhead had 3, Devlin had 2, Dorsett had 2. So he spread the love around, which Tom Brady loves to do. Every week is a different guy. But I do like to see Lewis, and I do like to see Burkhead there. Those guys make a lot of sense to me. They really do. They make a lot of sense. I think Burkhead for sure, great receiver out of the backfield, and a good runner. Deion Lewis has done an exceptional job this year, so there's no reason to really take him out of what he's doing. Okay? You know what we're doing at Scout Fantasy? We're giving you the best information we can. Information like this to help you win your fantasy football leagues. Who's number 1 in the online championship? Dr. Roto. That's right, my friends. Going for the 50K on the online championship. I'm excited. Let's see if I can do it. I'm helping you. I'm helping me. I want to win, and I want you guys to win your leagues as well. Okay? Also, check out scoutdfs.com. NBA, NHL, NFL optimizers. Check them out. Podcasts, articles, whatever you need to win, we're there to help you. But right now, it's time to put away the insurance cards, put away the copay. The office is closed, my friends. Back tomorrow with Waiver Wire Wednesday. Very rough week. I got a lot of guys on bye in Week 11, more than I ever thought. We'll figure it out tomorrow. Have a great day. Be well. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Scout Fantasy Show. There's never been a better time to join the Scout Army. Visit scoutfantasy.com. Use the promo ROTO for 2 months free. And don't forget, fantasy players, please thumbs up the podcast on the iHeart app. See you next time. Go Scouts!